Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you haven't been to the channel before, welcome. I'm Sailboat with Sailboat Sneakers, and this is another customization video. Today is easily going to be my most ambitious customization project yet, and what I'm going to be doing is customizing this here pair of Yeezy 350s. I got myself a pair of size 12.5 static non-reflective Yeezy 350s. I purchased this pair of statics in very lightly used condition from GOAT app. DS pairs are insanely expensive right now, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen during this customization project. If I do fuck something up really badly, at least I didn't spend the money on a DS pair of shoes. Now you might be asking, what exactly am I going to be doing with these Yeezy 350s? As much as I love the outsole and the midsole of the Yeezy 350, I've always wondered, what if they did a different kind of outsole and midsole? I've seen a couple of guys do it on Instagram where they have actually done sole swaps, and I've always been really intrigued to see if I could do one for myself. And that's exactly what I'm going to be attempting today. Let's take a quick look at the pair that I'll be sole swapping with. I have a pair of Adidas 4D ZX 4000 sneaker and stuff collaboration. Now you may recognize this specific pair from my channel because I have actually done a sole swap with these in the past. I have actually swapped the outsole and midsole of this 4D shoe onto a Nike React Air Max 270, and the result came out absolutely amazing. This is a project I've had on my mind for quite some time now, and I've really been looking forward to executing. Problem is, in order to find a size 12.5 Yeezy 350, you either gotta pay resale or potentially hit for retail. It's nearly impossible to hit a pair that I wanted to hit for retail, and then paying resale costs on a dead stock pair was especially expensive. It took me some time before I could find a pair that I was really down to customize, and finally somebody accepted an offer on a pair of the statics. I already own a pair of statics and I really enjoy them. It's the only pair of 350s that I have in my collection. So I figured, why not customize a pair if I already know that I like them a lot? For this specific customization project, not only will I be running a sole swap from the 4D to the Yeezy 350, I'm also going to be dyeing the 4D midsole as well as the upper of the Yeezy 350. This is going to be a very intensive project, but I'm really excited about it. The first thing that I got to do before I can even think about another part of this project is get these Yeezys clean, because I don't want to be dyeing a dirty pair of Yeezys, and I especially don't want to be wearing a dirty pair of Yeezys. Let's get these suckers clean and see what they look like afterwards so we can get into the sole detachment process. So nothing too crazy going on here. I basically just used some cleaner like Jason Mark or Rejuvenator in its normal fashion to clean down the outsoles, the midsoles, and the uppers. Now that I got these Yeezys clean, it's time to get the soles separated off of both the 4D pair and the Yeezys. Now typically in order to do this, I would use some boiling water and some acetone, but one of the main goals is to try and preserve as much of the original shoe as possible while removing the midsole. And I've seen a lot of people that have had some really good success using some really hot water methods. So I actually went out and purchased a product to help me with my midsole removal. Here I have a Bissell Steam Shot. You can see a teapot-like apparatus with a little blower on the end. And basically you utilize this to heat up water very hot and shoot it out in a steam form. And I'm hoping that this helps me to separate the midsoles from the uppers. I guess we got to give that a shot now and see how it works. Using the Steam Shot was an absolute game changer in my sole separation technique. For the first shoe, I tried using just the Steam Shot, but I quickly realized that if I added tiny little squirts of acetone, like absolutely minimal amounts of acetone, it made the uppers peel off like absolute butter.
And if you take a look at the time difference between the first shoe and the last shoe, you'll be able to tell that it was a substantial improvement on my overall time. It actually only took me about 30 minutes to do all 4 shoes, but the last shoe probably only took like 4 or 5 minutes. The next part of the process was the most grueling, which was just a bunch of acetone and cotton balls to clear off all of the excess glue from the uppers and the midsoles. I wish I had my Dremel tool, but unfortunately I didn't, so it was acetone and cotton balls all day.
At this point in time, the midsoles and the uppers are separated. They are nice and clean. Lola even learned a little bit about the cleaning process.
I learned it's very tedious.
It takes a long time, takes a lot of elbow grease, but everything is looking pretty nice at this point in time. And what we need to do is dye the 4D midsoles. Let's take a quick look just so you can see how clean these surfaces are before we get to the dyeing process. For the next process, we'll be using RIT dyes in order to dye the midsole. Taking a quick look at the 4D midsole here, you can see that there's still a little bit of glue stuck in between the lattice work of the 4D structure. However, the points of contact that are the most important are all nice and clean, other than along the arch, where I'm gonna need to use my Dremel to remove some of this plastic caging that came off of the uppers during the removal of the uppers. You can see all the way through though, all of the glue has been removed. We went through a bunch of acetone during this process, but the results are really nice and clean and just really needs a little bit of touch-up work. On the right midsole, you can see at the arches some more of that plastic caging material that came off of the uppers. A little bit of a nick in the 4D right there, but that honestly is a little bit more cosmetic than anything. Looking really good. You can just see a little bit of glue in the lattice work, and otherwise this is solid. Uppers also looking nice and clean. You can see what looks to be almost like a pencil mark or a pen mark that goes around the shoe. And if I'm not mistaken, that is actually just where the glue line is on the original shoe. You can see that there are some parts that are still a little bit stiffer along this kind of upper portion here that look like they have more glue, but quite honestly, I think that that's just part of the shoe to give it a little bit more structure where it's going to be meeting with the midsole, and also to help to protect the stitching so that the upper doesn't just fall apart. Looking really, really good. Might need another quick clean down, but otherwise, solid condition. These are ready for a re-glue and a dye. Quick look at the right upper here. Same thing, you can see that line that kind of goes along the entirety of the shoe. The mesh a little bit stiffer here through the bottom. And again, I think that's just to help to protect all of the threads and to help to give a little bit more structure where the upper is glued down. Overall though, looking really clean. This is definitely ready for a re-glue. The next thing that I need to do, pour some of this RIT and some boiling water in this pot, and the midsoles are just gonna sit in it for like 30 to 60 minutes. Not really that exciting, but it's a necessary part of the process. So let's get down to it.
Dyeing the midsoles definitely was not very exciting, and it was pretty simple because literally all I had to do was put my dye into some nearly boiling water and just let the midsoles sit in it. I found out that the synthetic dye worked a lot more quickly, and you'll end up seeing that the red dye actually overtook the color of the yellow very, very rapidly because it was the synthetic. However, all of the dyes were very, very simple to use and absolutely incredibly effective. You just got to make sure that you're keeping a watchful eye so then that way the colors don't get too intense. It takes some different times and experimentations, but after a little while it was pretty easy, and all I had to do was keep my eye on it and make sure that I was adding more dye as I wanted to get darker colors.
Here we are. Thus far, I have the uppers nice and cleaned. I got the midsoles dyed and relatively cleaned. I still need to Dremel down a couple of sections, but these came out crazy. The rainbow effect on this is quite honestly not exactly what I was aiming to achieve, but I think that it's a really cool effect nonetheless. I was aiming for a little bit more of like a gradient orange to blue pattern with just a bare amount of yellow in the middle. It looks really great from top view, but from a side view, it's a little bit more of a red color. Now that the midsoles are done, and I haven't touched the uppers, it is about time that I get into the dyeing process for the uppers. What I have here is a bunch of Nodway tie-dye pigment. I have an Indio blue, an orange, a sky blue, a yellow, and a red. My original inspiration was actually HESKicks, who did a Jordan 6 denim Fortnite Cactus Jack Nerf gun collaboration inspired shoe. It was really cool. It's a great colorway. It's got these really dope blends of blue and yellow and orange with a little bit of a hint of red and some green mixed in there. It kind of represents like a thermal image. I'm hoping to recreate that same kind of look and almost give this like a thermal vision camouflage type of look. I think what I'm gonna do is try a little bit more of a specific application, but let's find out what sort of color pattern I can get.
So the first time that I tried to dye the uppers, I actually prepared the tie-dye powder in the way that you would prepare traditionally for tie-dyeing t-shirts. However, I found out that this was not a very successful application of the dye because it spread really quickly through the fibers of the uppers, and as soon as I went to wash it, it actually rinsed out almost all of the dye. It took me a total of 4 times before I finally figured out an application that would help to set the dye in the fabric permanently and achieve the colors I wanted.
Now that the uppers are dyed, I gotta let them sit for somewhere in between 16 to 24 hours for the dye to completely sink into the upper material. I figure in the meantime, I might as well finish cleaning off the junk that came off of the uppers of the sneakers where I got the 4D midsoles from, and that's pretty much the last step of prep work that I have to do before I get to the actual re-gluing process once the uppers are finally done with their dyeing process. Let's go ahead and clean up the midsole.
Cleaning the midsole with the Dremel tool was incredibly easy. It was perfect to get off all the excessive plastic and glue that I was unable to get off with the acetone. But after I finished up with the midsoles, I had to try to set the dye in the uppers using some RIT color fixative. You can see that the dye rinsed out pretty immediately, and after I washed it, it rinsed out pretty much all the way. So instead, I utilized some of the RIT color fixative to actually dilute the powder of the tie-dye, and then I applied directly using a paintbrush. After using a paintbrush, I used my heat gun to try and actually set the dye in place in the fibers of the uppers. This proved to actually be a pretty successful method, and I ended up doing it several times so I could achieve the depth of color that I was looking for. But it was actually a perfect method, and you can see that even after I rinse out the shoes, it really doesn't lose too much color. And then I ended up putting them in the washing machine to make sure that the color stayed. Now, I ended up wanting to go with a darker blue, so I ended up doing the blue dye another time, and it finally achieved the depth of color that I was looking for. It took a really long time and was definitely a learning process, but I'm really happy that I was able to achieve the results that I did, just because there are so many different kinds of fabrics and they don't always take to dye especially well. So sometimes you have to come up with your own sort of technique to help that dye to set in a little bit better. The heat gun and the RIT dye fixative to help to dilute the tie-dye powder was an absolutely perfect method for this application, and I'm sure that if I had a little bit more time that I would have been able to make that pattern even better.
After 4 dye sessions, I finally finished the uppers for these Yeezy 350s. Again, I was kind of inspired by HESKicks and his Air Jordan 6 denim custom, where he tried to replicate the thermal pattern from the Cactus Jack Travis Scott Fortnite Nerf gun, and I think I did a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and take a closer look so you guys can see the uppers before I get to the final steps of this project. As you can see, the uppers are completely done for the 350s. I'm actually really happy with the outcome. I think that I did a pretty good job kind of replicating that Travis Scott, Cactus Jack, Fortnite, Nerf gun. The only thing that I did notice is that the yellow turned a little bit green due to the blue dye on the final dye session. Now obviously this took me 4 complete dye sessions to get the color that I was looking for, and I definitely learned quite a bit with my technique as I was going through. But overall, I think that they came out really nicely. The symmetry is actually halfway decent. I didn't want a totally symmetrical look, but I wanted it to be somewhat symmetrical, and I think that I hit that pretty well. At this point in time, there's only one final step that I need to do with this project, and that is to glue the uppers to the midsoles. Let's get down to it and finish these bad boys off.
For my re-gluing process, I use Barge Super Stick cement, which is by far the best cement that I've found for re-gluing midsoles and uppers, to date at least. You can see that I utilize my N95 to help to block out the fumes. I definitely need to get a respirator soon though. I used 2 layers of glue just to make sure that I had the best bond possible.
Glue has been applied. It's been cured for about 2 hours or so. The final countdown begins. The uppers and the midsoles are getting glued together, and that's realistically the last step in this project. It's a big one. Can't make any mistakes here. So let's get into it and make it happen.
For my actual re-gluing process, I use shoe trees that I bought at Men's Warehouse that fit absolutely perfectly and are one of the best investments that I've made. I used some clamps to help to clamp everything down, and you can see I attempted to do cause style laces, but unfortunately they were too flat, so I went with a traditional lacing style.
So here we are. I am finally finished with this Yeezy 350 static 4D sole swap hybrid. I am incredibly pumped with how they turned out. Like, I am absolutely thrilled that they came out looking this fucking good. This is exactly what I had in mind. Let's take a closer look on some footage that I shot in my studio box so you guys can see the true colors and way that this shoe came out. I think that the color of the uppers was almost exactly what I was aiming for. If you didn't remember, these were inspired by the Travis Scott Cactus Jack Fortnite Nerf gun. As you can see, the uppers are kind of a thermal image camo type of pattern. One of the big kind of flaws, if you will, that you'll notice with the sneaker, where the heel cup of the upper goes into the heel cup of the midsole. This actually isn't a glue line, it's actually a part of the uppers. I think it's to help to give the stitching some reinforcement and give a little bit of extra reinforcement to the footbed of the upper. Overall, the glue job turned out really well across the board. One thing that I did notice that you guys probably won't pick up on, but me being incredibly picky with my own work, I did get the actual lineup of the heel alignment a little bit better on the right shoe than the left shoe. But that's something that I definitely don't feel while I'm wearing it, so it's not something that actually affects the shoe in a major way. The midsoles look really good. I really like the rainbow gradient. Unfortunately, I didn't achieve the effect that I was looking for. I wanted a more orange kind of forefoot and then fading into a blue on the back. And while I more or less achieved that effect, the orange is a lot deeper than I wanted it to be. At the end of the day, I think that the midsoles actually came out really nice. Overall, I'm insanely pumped with how these came out. I put on some laces from an old pair of Nikes that I had. I like the way that the neon yellow popped, but quite honestly, I think that I might get like a pale yellow reflective or like glow in the dark pair of laces. I think that that more subtle contrast might be really nice on this pair. Plus, I'd really like to do the cause lacing style because I think that on this specific pair, it would look really cool. Well, it was definitely a learning process. I'm really excited that I made this pair because I have so many more ideas that I want to execute on. I pretty much hit the benchmark of what I was looking to do for my first Yeezy sole swap as far as comfort and as far as look is concerned. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about this. I know it's definitely not for everybody, but it was something that I really wanted to do, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. I'm curious to see what other people think about it though. Do you guys think that it's time that the Yeezys got a 4D midsole? I don't know. I personally think that it's about time, but then again, I do have a pair that I can attest to myself, This was a really dope project, and I'm definitely going to be doing more in the future, so make sure that you keep your eyes open. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on social media. Everything will be listed below as the video is playing. As always, if you want to make a purchase, check out the website www.sailboatsneakers.com. I have all my inventory up for sale there, and you can always shoot me an offer and we can work out some sort of deal as well. So I'm always open to hearing from you guys. Make sure that you get in touch with me directly. Appreciate you guys watching this video. Hopefully this gave you a little bit more insight into my process as far as my soul swap hybrids are concerned. Big shout out to all of the guys that have done this before me. The list goes on and on. There's a whole bunch of you. I will definitely link you guys in the credits as well as in the actual video description, so make sure that you check it out to see some of the original soul swap hybrid masters. People like Govern, Castlevania, From the Foot Up, Sneakers of Sui, amongst many others. Big shout out to HESKicks for the inspiration as far as the colorway is concerned. Quite honestly, if I hadn't watched your dyeing video for those Jordan 6s, I wouldn't have had an idea of exactly how I wanted to do this, and that gave me a lot of inspiration and gave me a few ideas as well. And shout out to all of you guys for staying to the very cold, bitter end of this video. But you guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.